What's going on, you guys? It is Monday, August 4th. We're going to watch a little bit of Palantir earnings. Just want to get this to you guys before the report comes out. Quick little peek as well. We've got Palantir, Hims and Hers, Navitas, VRTX. Those are pretty much the big ones. Tomorrow we got Pfizer and Caterpillar, BP, probably Lemonade as well, and Marriott. The big ones are coming up Tuesday after close. AMD Supermicrocomputer, Open Door, Snapchat, Lucid, Upstart, Rivian. And then before open on Wednesday, Uber, Shopify, Novo Nordisk, Disney, McDonald's. And then after close on Wednesday, AppLovin, Ionic, Duolingo, Elf, DraftKings. And then Thursday, Celsius, Eli Lilly, ConocoPhillips, Vistra Energy, VST, Sony. After close on Thursday, Trade Desk, Rocket Lab, SoundHound, Pinterest, Atlassian, T2, Take-Two, and Friday before open, Fubo, Tempest, TeraWolf, Canopy Growth. So we still got some pretty good earnings coming up soon. What I want to make sure that you guys see, especially as we go into close, couple things. First off, this is PCG. We did see a lot of these. We saw this come in on stacks. This was Pacific Gas and Electric, up about 6%, almost 7% today. So doing pretty well, up almost $1 since yesterday or since Friday. And you know, we still see some calls coming in. So these ones for $1 million, 1.1 mil, we see aiming for September 19th, $17 strike, got in at 35 cents. So if you guys have smaller accounts, that's actually not a bad position to be looking at. Now the ones you guys care about. I got the baby, by the way. Palantir. I will say, Palantir, there are a lot of people selling off on their positions right now in terms of their calls. Probably just getting out before the crazy moves happen. But if you look at just today, and this is all today, 804, all the way down to here, we see the majority of them getting into calls right now. So still quite bullish in terms of Palantir. There's an implied about 8% move, so it should go up or down about $13 is the expectation, at least what options is telling us. And yes, there were big money calls taken for February of 2026, and we have puts taken for the end of this week, the 8th, 145 put. So that's actually a pretty decent move if they miss their earnings. About a $15 move there, but 9% down. And then what was also really interesting was, if you take a look, this 808, 808, 815, 808, there's actually quite a few calls being taken. But I will say those positions aiming for about 157.5 and also 162.5. Those are pretty pricey. 850 and 1130 for those positions. So, you know, close to $1,000 per contract. A lot of times I like to stay away from those because there is also a chance those will get IV crushed, or if they go the other direction. Or even there's two things you have to remember. Yes, if it goes up, you can make some money, but if it doesn't move up enough, those positions, even though they chose the right direction, could still lose out. On the other hand, there is a chance that if it goes against you, obviously it's going to lose premium. And then there's also the third possibility is we got it to chop around. A lot of it's already priced in, and both calls and puts do lose. So I'm going to be more of a viewer on this. I'm already in on PCG, and that's kind of the position I've been watching today. Real quick, let's take a look at HIMS as well. See if there's anything. Nothing came in today. So you'll see they've been selling a lot of puts lately. So probably a wall down below at 40 and around. Right now, this one's saying it shouldn't be going down below 61. If they do, they're willing to grab shares of it. So HIM's not as much information to consider in terms of what Stacks has to say. VRTX, Vertex, nothing really there today too. So I think the big one everybody's here is to see Palantir. We'll keep an eye on this, see if anything else pops up right before close. We've got 5 minutes till close. Let's pull up the chart and see where we're at. So Palantir, you know, we've talked about this. We did our review of this in our chat, in our Discord. Let me pull that up too. Yeah, I know. Discord real quick before we jump back here. Discord did a huge write-up. Both me and Max both wrote about this. Palantir earnings today after close. P/E ratio is super high. Stocks trading right below the all-time high. Today it retested it. Daily, weekly, monthly stochastic, all showing extremely overbought. Big money's got mixed calls and puts bought together for 88 above 165, below 150. Unusual sentiments all over the place, as you guys can see. This is from last Friday, at least. But we will say that while it could irrationally go higher, once it drops, it'll drop hard. Ryan Taylor, the chief revenue officer and chief legal officer, sold $5 million earlier this month. So on 7/14, they got out on quite a few shares there. So will Palantir continue up or come back down to earth? They did have a lot of new contracts that they signed last quarter. I do know that as well. Since that quarter, since they reported last quarter, they're up 50%. Q2 expectations, EPS 0.14 estimate is up 54% year over year. Revenues right under $1 billion, estimate 939 million, up 38% year over year. So they did land the massive $10 billion U.S. Army contract. They're expanding their AI foundry into commercial sectors. Stock is up 500% year to date. So it's one of the biggest gainers right now. And big institutions are loading up on equity. So watch for their, I would say that put is probably the hedging flow. Valuation, very lofty. This is 200 times forward earnings, 96% EV sales. EPS surprise potential is low. It's priced for perfection. Analysts are cautious. Only 2 of 12 rated as a buy right now. Okay, so they need to show AI doesn't just equal profit, and AI equals profit for them, and not just buzzwords in their report. So keep that in mind. We got 2 more minutes till they report. I do expect this one to be a mover, so let's keep an eye out on that, and we'll see. So again, yeah, today we are retesting their all-time highs. If we look at the daily, we did just peak up and make new all-time highs. The most recent was on Thursday, where they peaked up above 106.98 or 89. And today we tested and went a little bit higher. So there's definitely risk to the downside. Can it make new all-time highs? Of course. This is one of those names that has kind of irrationally gone higher. They do have a lot of future upcoming things that they're about to implement, especially with them, monitoring the data of all Americans and things like that. So there's a lot of government backing in terms of what they potentially could end up doing. But we got close coming up in a minute. Let's see what ends up happening. We're just gonna watch. right, we just got market close. Let's see what happens post-market. Usually it'll take about 15 minutes for us to see our movement. Just so that I know you guys are here, comment stacks, or if you want to, you can comment Palantir, PLTR, on my chat with me, so I know that you guys are here watching. Good to have you guys. And let me know, what are you looking at? Are you playing Palantir? Do you think it's going up? Do you think it's going down? Love to know. Starting to creep up, but that's a small move so far. Will it be bigger and bigger? Do we keep seeing higher? We just retested and very likely took out the liquidity of all-time highs. Remember, the implied move today is about 8%, so we should see it probably on the high end go up above 170, on the lower end maybe drop back down below 150. First move right after hours is not always going to be it. So while, you know, if you're a bull for Palantir, that's a good look so far, but there, you know, we've often seen after the time goes by that we start to see it reverse. So yeah, Jenny, I looked at Palantir, and while there was some decent bullish flow for it, I'll tell you the IV on a lot of those, especially for those ones that are aiming for Friday, are way too high. So it really does need to make a move. I will say that a lot of those Friday calls were looking at the, you know, very close to in the money. So they're the 162.5 and also the 157.5. So they were buying right very close to in the money, which are generally going to be a little bit pricier in terms of options. But in those situations, the move, you know, they'll make money off the move, but you got to keep in mind something like 162.5, they were still spending about $8 per option on that. So it's got to go above 170 for that to be worth money by Friday. Keep an eye out. I'm going to pull up my Twitter just to see if I see any sort of reports on this so far. But looks like we're just, this is usual after hours earnings movement so far. So to answer your AMD question, I will say AMD is also one of those names that's run up pretty hard since the April tariffs. It does need a bit of a pullback at this point. PE ratio 129. This is all in my eRoo trades channel, by the way. Up 44% year to date, up 133% from the lows of the tariffs. So, you know, they broke out of their downward trend back in May. The price action seems to be overbought. The stacks sentiment is very mixed. I would definitely say because they report tomorrow, I would be more focused as to what comes in tomorrow during the day, especially on stacks. I think that will give me a better idea of what direction, what sentiment they have overall. Risk is more so to the downside. It's kind of in that, you know, it's pretty high up in terms of where it used to be. AMD also has the nickname from some people on Reddit that it's called the Advanced Money Destroyer. A lot of times they report earnings and they're decently good, but then they drop in terms of price. So they're kind of the little brother, little sister of NVIDIA, but they tend to get overlooked for a lot of things that they do. They do need to report or give guidance in terms of how they're going to make a bigger imprint on the AI space. So go back and read what I had to say. Have a conversation in our Discord, and we'll see what happens from there. Oop, Palantir, there we go. There's the pop. Is that it? Ooh, that's an ugly looking wick so far, though. Is it going to come all the way down? Oh, my goodness. Let's see. What does Palantir's earnings say? Double beat. That was expected. Beat EPS by about 14%. Came in at 16 when expected was 14 cents. Revenue 1.004 billion versus the 939.47 million that was their revenue expectation. So beat by 7% for revenue, which is actually kind of on the low end, I'll be honest. If you take a look at previous earnings, they've had some pretty big beats. So, oop, is that going to be the drop? I feel like this is going to end up being kind of flat compared to what is expected. Because, like I said, up about... I'll mark it up toward about 173 is where it's expected to move on the high end. Down below 157 is probably where you would say it's supposed to move on the lower end. Oh, sorry, 147. Missed that. 147. I'll use that blue line down there as the example. So the expectation was this to move up about 8% from where it closed versus down 8% from where it closed. So I have it marked at about 7.5% there. But you know, if it was at 160, which is right around where it's trading, it's up about 2.5% so far after hours. But I think they're just digesting the news at this point. Let's peek over at HIMS. HIMS dropped. Revenue came in a little bit lower than estimate. Class action notice came in 3 hours ago. NVTS dropped just as well. Revenue 0.09 mil higher. I gotta see what else is being said about that. VRTX. Vertex dropped as well. Okay, so let's see if Palantir holds it up. Looking more so on the bullish side of this, but it's a much smaller move so far than what was expected. Yeah, the expectations were extremely high on this name to begin with. Revenue up 68% annually, $10 billion deal. We already know about that. Second quarter U.S. commercial revenue up 93% on the year. That's good. Third quarter guidance, 50%. Adjusted operating income by 80%. Yeah, can they keep it up for the next 5 years? Making its way up toward 170. Now up about 5.5%. Rebecca, NVTS is probably just dropping just because earnings weren't quite where the expectations are. Let me look it up real quick. NVTS earnings was in line. Okay, so you have to remember their EPS is a negative 5 cents. So their earnings per share is losing 5 cents this quarter. Their revenue came in and beat by 0.06 million. So very tiny beat. The revenue is down since last year, 29%. EPS is up though, quarter over quarter. Revenue is up 3% quarter over quarter. So it's really just while these numbers aren't bad overall, they were lower than the expectations, and it's also due to the fact that they're still losing money. So that's the rough part of it. EPS, earnings per share, at -5 cents. It's not huge, but it's not something that investors love. So down 14% after hours. HIMS starting to make a little bit of a comeback, still down about 7% after hours. And then VRTX, I don't think they trade as much after hours, but down 8%. So Palantir, this is a pretty small move compared to what I think people are expecting. I think people are expecting it to shoot up. I think I saw on Twitter, some people are expecting that if it breaks up above this 160, 170 range, that we could start to see 200 something plus, but that's ridiculous, guys. This company is already trading at 673 times their earnings. Yeah, IV went up even more. IV at 122% for the 1 week. So what I usually do is I'll set my alert right up here, set my alert down here. So if any bigger moves happen as we wait, it'll notify me. While we let that move on, and we'll discuss this real quick. What do we see at the end of close today? We're still seeing quite a few SPY puts being taken out for September. Right now, if you guys weren't aware, the big news that happened last week that caused the big sell-off on Friday was that we had the National Labor Bureau of Statistics. They ended up revising the jobs report from the last 2 months. So one of the things that has been preventing the Federal Reserve from lowering interest rates, which is what the president wants, is the fact that they have two major mandates within their job description as the Federal Reserve. They want to have stable jobs, and they also want to make sure that there is the low inflation overall. Okay, so they need to make sure that inflation doesn't kick us in the butt, and they also need to make sure that people have jobs and employment isn't too far out of line. So adding jobs every month, we were averaging, I think, around a little over 100K jobs added every month, which is solid. It's keeping unemployment low. However, the Bureau of Labor Statistics, they went and they revised those numbers from the last 2 months, and they removed over 250,000 jobs. And this month's report also came in much lower than expected. So I think they said only 70 something thousand jobs were added this month when the expectation was over 100K. And then last 2 months they revised them heavily to the downside. And this comes in right after Jerome Powell says that they're not going to change interest rates until they get better idea of what's going on with the statistics. So in revising these numbers, the chances for a September rate cut have jumped up heavily. So suddenly The expectation was that they were going to see what the statistics and data says. Now there's a much higher chance that they're going to cut those rates in the upcoming month. Now you guys have to remember, a lot of people expect, okay, if there are lower rates, that means more people are going to spend more money, right? And, you know, by boosting the economy, it's going to lead to asset prices inflating. It's going to lead to a little bit more inflation as well. And that's generally what's supposed to happen when we lower rates. But you have to remember, there's always the narrative behind it. What is it that's happening that's causing these rates to be cut? And right now, because it's due to the fact that unemployment is rising, we do not have stable jobs and stable growth of jobs. It's starting to, you know, because it was revised, was a shock to everybody. And now the reason for cutting rates is to prop up the economy due to lagging indicators such as employment. So ultimately, that does mean, and that actually, for a lot of people, they think it's going to be bullish. Yes, in the long run, it will be bullish because there's going to be more money flooding into the markets. However, initially, it's going to actually have a bearish move upon the market. So, you know, that type of interest rate change. So keep that in mind. As a result, we saw a lot of names sell off after this huge run up since April. Trump did say he's firing the head of the Bureau of Labor Statistics. We'll see what ends up happening there. But as of right now, that's why we are seeing quite a few of these SPY puts coming in. And if you take a look at SPY overall, and I just like to filter for the buys. Got some calls sprinkled in here and there, but overall, I would definitely say it's looking a bit more bearish in terms of what they're aiming for in September. It's also important, if we go in here, we just check for today. SPY overall, you can see 4 mil puts to 6.63 mil calls. So that's definitely where we see that. Same with IWM. QQQ is actually kind of even. A lot of these names, MicroStrategy, Palantir is a little bit more bullish, obviously, as you can see today. Apple, Meta, not that much being taken out in terms of a lot of these that you usually see a lot more money flowing in and out of. Politicians, a little bit of selling, insider trades. If you guys have stacks, go look through them. Let us know what you see in the chat, in the Discord. We can always discuss them from there. All right, let's jump back into see what's Palantir. Kind of just sticking around in that range. So we got to see, if you're bullish on it, you got to see it break up above this line right there. It's wedging. 4% move, so it only moved about half of what was expected so far. I definitely think there's going to be more movement to come before the day's over. While we wait for that move, another thing I wanted to share with you guys too on stacks, I will be doing our stacks AI back testing very soon. This CORZ and MicroStrategy probably won't get fully back tested. They did just come in at the beginning of the month, but we've got quite a few from last month. Got these HIMS one all the way down here, STX, NVIDIA, Circle, Coin, ASO, Celsius. By the way, Celsius does report later this week. We got Etsy. We got these Palantir calls as well. PCG, so that's the one I was talking about at the beginning. Pacific Gas and Electric. 17 calls for 2027. These ones are probably up already at least 20-30%. They did report the day after and we saw a pullback on it, but then we saw it pop. And right now, these ones, alongside with a lot of the other positions that were purchased, a lot of these are up pretty heavy. So what I like to do is when we do see something like Stacks and Stacks AI, I like to think it lays a foundation. Then what you're looking for afterwards are they buying unusual out of the money calls? So you see these OTM out of the money. Blue lines here mean they're unusual. They're expecting a very large move. Gold means that they're buying big money. And in this situation, these are positions that, especially when I see all this, it's all green, meaning everybody together is expecting it to move up. You have to understand when it does start to move and it starts to push upward, there's going to be forces with the options market that force the market maker to actually go and buy more of the stock, which is only going to, in return, push that name higher as well. So PCG, overall today moved up pretty heavy. It's trading right above 15 right now. If we take a look on the bigger picture, had a 6% move today, but you could even say 6 to 7% throughout the day as it went. So it's these types of names, especially when they're trading at cheaper valuations. When you see a move like that, it ends up giving you decent returns. One of my positions I saw was already up about 80% just today, from that move. So keep in mind, there's no real news that came out. Earnings, you saw it dropped it lower, and then it quickly got snatched up and it's headed higher. You can also see I was saying there was a little bit of a inverse head and shoulders type of pattern. Whenever you have that type of pattern, you can understand that from the head to the shoulder line, that is the expected move higher. So we definitely could see it head up toward about 15.5 or a little bit higher, or at least that's what head and shoulders patterns say. And it does quite bring us back up here to where previous buying and selling did happen with the drop back in June. Let me know, are you guys in any of these positions, things like that. Let's see. HUT, HUT, HUT 8. So we've got a bottom floor here. Most recently, they've kind of just been, they are making higher lows. It's kind of just in this channel. So the thing that I don't love about these types of companies is you can see basic EPS, they are losing money right now. Ooh, look at that last one. So, okay, earnings 2 quarters ago, amazing. It still dropped. And then last quarter, if you take a look at the surprise, it's not just a surprise, it's this percentage. Yeah, 3,800% surprise on the upside, that's great. But on this one, the last one, surprise down 1,100%. So, let's see what Stacks has to say, though. You said there's some unusual stuff coming in. Huh. So they bought these calls at 23, but they sold the 21 strike. Usually you would buy lower and sell higher, and that would give a gap saying it's going up past 21 to 23. This one I feel like maybe might be a hint that they actually expect it to go poorly. They sold off these calls. So if they were to buy back at cheaper, that would make them money. I don't love this name, to be honest. Number one, there's not too much going on. I see nothing in the equities and dark pool saying that anybody's buying it. Yes, it is an unusual name. Yes, it's cheap, where you might want to, you could play it because it's a cheaper name. But I tend to gravitate toward companies that, at least if they report and have good earnings, you can make money off of it. A lot of times, even if this has a good earnings and they're still losing money, you can see price go down further. So Peloton. Yeah, I'm going to get to everything you guys are asking, so give me a sec. Peloton. They might have gotten in on this and sold off pretty quickly. Right, same number, or they sold off a big portion of it. They kept 700. Peloton's one of those names where it made a huge splash during lockdown. And it was supposed to be the whole, yeah, if you needed to only work out at home, it's something to consider. But CEO made a bunch of money off of it, and he pretty much ran. Peloton could, if it is able to break up above this wedge, we could see some positive movement. It's kind of just been chopping around. It's a $7 stock when it used to, at one point, look at this. It used to be a $171. And like I've shown you guys too, look at this. Look at the comparison. Got the pop up to euphoria up at the top. You got complacency coming back down. Anxiety, denial, panic, capitulation, anger, depression, disbelief. Like, it's gone through the entire psychology of a market cycle. So they need to, like I've already talked about this before in previous live streams and previous videos. This company very likely down the line could get acquired. They do have infrastructure. I mean, they've got a lot of bikes out there, but I know most people I know that have a Peloton bike use it as a coat hanger or just drape their clothes all over it. So, their subscription model and things like that didn't really pan out as gyms reopened and, things continued from there. They were basically the lockdown play, and they did make money off of it, but as of now, there's a lot of other alternatives that really broke into what they offer. Quarterly, annually, they've just been losing money. I've made money off of little pops off of this name, but if they are a cheap name to kind of gamble on for earnings, but I personally would stay away from it because you don't even see them buying the equity. So if something's about to happen with this, you'll hear rumors about one of the big companies probably acquiring it, if anything. So Hut and Peloton, play at your own risk. I'm not going to tell you exactly what to do, but I personally don't love those names for earnings plays because, like I told you guys, if I saw stuff like this, if I saw this type of flow coming in for any of those names right before earnings, yeah, go take your position with it. But like you can see in here, very, very scarce, okay? And another thing to think about as well, and I use this as an example, when I teach about options, every expiration and every strike, you can compare it to like a colorway and a shoe size. Just because you have that shoe, just because you have that product, in this case, this equity or the stock, having the wrong size and having the wrong colorway sometimes means it's going to get sold at Ross and at Marshall's instead. It's going to be a discount shoe because only so many people wear a size 16, and only so many people want that ugly looking color. And that's the idea here too, is like picking out the right expiration and strike is extremely important too. And you have to understand what risks lie within it whenever you do look at these. The Celsius play, let me read. Celsius Stacks AI play on 7/23. Stock make a move recently, but back down in the entry area. ER coming up. So yes, we did see this Stacks AI print come in. 22% expected move. They have till January above 55. It's jumped up to about like 47 or so. Came right back down as of right now. Stacks over here still showing, I mean, I would say still a bit of buying. There are some puts taken out for October. I will say as a energy drink, I do notice a lot more people buying this. They did have a push up pretty hard. I have a few of these contracts from Stacks AI. Oh, let me make sure I show you guys Stacks, not just TradingView. For above 45, this one's kind of a safe play. Above 55, this one's got a little bit more risk to it. I would say a little bit more bullish for earnings. Not a ton of flow, right? If you see, this is the Stacks AI call. $3.50, but $2 million being spent on it. They're expecting it to happen by 2026, so they actually have some time. Looking back over at TradingView, yeah, they're just kind of making their way up on this little wedge right now. So will it break up above 48? Is it gonna just stay down here and drop below 43? We might. Is it possible that the whale insider for Stacks AI believes and thinks that they might be reporting a better earnings? Might be it. 2 consecutive quarters of positive earnings. PE ratio is fairly high, 144. But they're fixing up their net margin a little bit more, a little better. So might be one of those future plays. You got to keep in mind too, if I take a look at it here, let's say they got in on the 23rd, right around here. They're expecting for January, and they're expecting above what, 55 was it? So I would say maybe cut if it goes down below 40, 42 or so. You have a risk reward ratio of 3 right here, and it's just got to head up to this top before it gets to the top right corner. So another thing as well is if Celsius does drop after earnings, maybe getting into it if they have good guidance for the future to play that upside afterwards. So you don't have to play earnings, you can play after too. If you don't like the risk of earnings, you don't like those movements like that, wait for the dust to settle before you take a look at it, and then consider if it's still a position worth taking. Palantir, what happened? Oh, look at that spike up. About 10 minutes ago, it spiked all the way up to 171, came right back down. We will see in the morning. I think there's more possibility of upside, but for those if you took an earnings gamble and you took it for outside of like above 180, I saw some people taking the 200 contracts for like September. You might make a little bit off of it, but it's more than likely going to lose out because of IV crush. So Yeah, we'll see about the earnings call. I'm probably going to log off before that, but you guys definitely, you can always comment back in here. If you're in stacks, go ahead. We'll be discussing it when they do their earnings call. I would expect, remember, it's always about, it's like the head coach or the front office in the NBA. There's certain front offices and there's certain head coaches you can pretty much rely on to make the team better. Same with, companies and reports for their earnings. There's certain people that are always going to do their best to push up their share price and report earnings and be able to spin it in a positive light that, keeps the price of that stock heading up. So the stewardship, or the people in their front office, the people in their administration that help keep these prices up, they've got a big report to give, and Alex Karp does a pretty good job. He's one of those insiders that has the connections that are needed to make this a successful company. So we'll see how that goes. All right, if you guys made it this far with me, comment stacks. We will be doing some more earnings calls throughout this week. We'll probably do a, watch AMD and what's reporting tomorrow. A reminder here, pull that up. Earnings for the rest of the week. We've got a lot of names coming up. So keep an eye out for those. Let us know what you want, especially if you're in our Discord. Let us know what it is you want us to do reports on. Max and I will be writing those up for you guys. But, hope you guys made some money or are getting ready to make some money this week. We'll keep an eye out for the rest of what shows up throughout stacks. That being said, this is Eric, eRoo here with Stacks Investor Central Club. I'll see you guys in the next one.